versus machine, the battle between tech and humans in the art industry. My name is Isabella Chavis, and this will be my argument for today. To begin, I'd like to highlight my agenda, which will clearly delineate my argument throughout this presentation, beginning with the introduction, then the evaluation of arguments, identifying key factors, evaluating solutions to this problem, the conclusion, and then my reference slide. In January of 2023, 3 individual artists filed a lawsuit with companies Stable Diffusion AI and Midjourney AI for using their artworks without compensation or consent to train their AI programs. These lawsuits were also filed by company Getty Images for also using their images without consent to train their programs. A month later, Netflix announced their short film project, The Boy and the Dog, which used AI-generated background images for the entirety of the film. Meanwhile, Netflix had fired 30 of their artists from their animation team. Now, the Government Accountability Office suggests that this is not going to be a one-off occurrence and suggests that anywhere from 9% to 40% of all occupations will be replaced by AI. This instance in particular has many implications for this, considering that this is one of the very few instances that we can see this early on with complete machine threatening to take over. And it posits the research question, can artificial intelligence ethically coexist with humans in the art industry? Before we go further, I would like to highlight my stimulus connections between how to build a resilient future using ancient wisdom and urban evolution. Urban evolution has lots of tie-ins and references to the theme of adaptability, especially in an environment where survivability is necessary, and how to build a resilient future using ancient wisdom highlights the pits between modernization and tradition, between methods of carrying out the same task, and you'll see these themes as I continue in this presentation. The arguments between AI art and human artists mainly fall under these two categories, the flexibility in art and working efficiency. I will begin with the former. Flexibility in art is highly desirable in the artist industry, following artistic styles in areas of proficiency. AI artists claim that using AI art programs help them produce pieces with a much broader stylistic range, as well as a variety of different types of photos, allowing them to specialize in different subjects, whether it be backgrounds, portraits, as you can see here. This is also highlighted in an interview with The Week magazine, where different AI artists suggest that this not only helps them find occupations and job opportunities in the art industry, but also traditional artists who can use these images as reference. However, this fails to take into account the source of these images. As highlighted here, you can see the conglomerate signatures of multiple artists in these Lensa AI images. This means that these pictures have taken reference from actual artists, and now these images are able to be monetized by people who did not draw these original images. However, people like A. Guadamuz, the reader of intellectual law and copyright at the University of Sussex, claims that this does not hinder the original artist's ability to monetize off of their work, nor does it hinder their abilities in the art industry, as this is just simply a mimicry of their art style and does not have any further implications. However, this is not the case, as it's seen in a New York Times interview with artist Greg Butowski, as he highlights that he has seen a drop in his commissions over time as companies like Stability AI and Stable Diffusion AI have become more popular for art. The second argument has to do with the adaptability and versatility of both different artists. As highlighted by Madhvi Ramani, researcher, AI programs run off of 2 different skill sets, that being discriminators and generators, which help it learn more efficiency. This is not necessarily the case for human artists who have to use a grueling system of trial and error and experimentation to develop their artistic styles. But however, because this is a neural network, a program that can run hours at a time, this is extremely appealing to the art industry, as this greatly reduces the cost of human labor, as seen in The Boy and the Dog. when faced with the cost differences between a team of human artists, which require lots more pay, lots more recognition, and a lot more accommodations, versus a program in a much smaller team of artists, industries are more likely to pick the smaller team as it is more cost effective and will allow them to put more money into future projects. Now, this isn't just data, though, on a screen. This is a community's livelihood. This is how occupations function on both ends. A quote from Carla Ortiz, that data is my artwork, that's my life, I feel like it is my identity. And it is very clear that this rising issue does not provide enough accommodations for these artists nor protective policies. But it doesn't have to be this way, and I would like to posit a solution. First, I would like to evaluate the factors for this issue, though. The cost of labor, the risk of theft, and the lack of policy protections for artists in the industry. Evaluating solutions, Carla Ortiz and several other artists involved with the aforementioned lawsuit, as researched by Heather Lydiate, state that they would like to revise copyright law. However, highlighted by Guadamuse's research, this contains a lot more nuance than initially believed, as these programs run off of neural networks, and therefore copyright law becomes very muddied in who is the original owner of these art pieces, therefore making it an unfeasible solution on its own. The removal of human artwork as an entirety from these databases that these AI art programs run off of is also not very feasible, as this completely erases the possibility of job opportunities for AI artists in the industry. Now, two more of these solutions, which I believe to be a lot more promising, are consent evaluations and Glaze AI. Consent evaluations would detail the investigation of these databases, as these databases are publicly accessible to all people, which would find artists' works in these databases and then report to them, ask for their consent. However, this is not entirely feasible, as this would require an entirely separate human task force, which would require funding, more accommodations for human labor, and it's also very time-consuming, which isn't exactly necessary in this sort of solution, as it requires immediate action. Glaze AI is a technology developed by professors Ben Zhao and Heather Zhang at the University of Chicago, and it is a program that enables a cloaking to go over individual artists' works. This here is an example of the cloaking on Carla Ortiz's work, the furthest on the right being an example of the high cloaking, and on the left being no cloaking. This cloaking disturbs the image and changes how this image is read by AI programs. This is an example of Carla Ortiz's work, original work. In the middle is a mimicry by an AI program after being fed the original work as a prompt without the cloaking. And then on the very far right is an example of Carla Ortiz's work, the same image, being fed into the AI program with the cloaking on its highest setting. As you can see, the AI program is easily able to identify that this is in fact a human face, but it reads the artistic style as completely different, making people unable to mimic or impersonate Carla Ortiz's art style. I have chosen consent evaluations in Glaze AI to be a part of my synthesized solution, and I have made a two-part process for this. The first part is to check for image disturbance in the databases, and the second part is to apply Glaze AI to these images. The first part can be done using the aforementioned program's discriminators, which can tell the difference between image disturbance after training using generalized images. These images will scan the databases, pick out art pieces that do not have the Glaze AI filter already placed upon them, and then the second part will apply Glaze AI to these images using the generator part of their processes, making these artists' works secure in the database. These implications, as stated earlier, will help prevent mimicries and forgeries of artistic styles, and it will prevent the theft of artistic styles as well in monetized works. It also allows, as seen before, AI to reference poses and color palettes, not hindering their creative process entirely. However, this does carry some limitations. It may restrict freedom, taking direct references, as seen before, the artistic styles end up completely different than intended. It does slightly distort the finalized images, which can be detrimental to human artists if they are using their works in a portfolio. And it still does not account for art being used without artists' consent. This doesn't take into account that artists are still having their works unknowingly uploaded to these databases. However, this is just a positive solution to show that there is an end in sight for this conflict between humans and AI in these industry spaces, and that while this may not be a very feasible future for us now, if we continue to work at it, it's quite possible that there could be a future with AI and human artists, but it will require attentiveness and work. Thank you, and these are my references.
How did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process?
Initially, my research question started out very broad because I was mainly just focused on the ethicality of using AI art in the first place. Just in general, as I understand that the controversy surrounding taking an artist's work, feeding it through a network, or using a series of prompts to copy an artist's style, that tended to be a very heavy topic in the art sphere. But I realized that that left very little nuance to the conversation, and I wanted to provide deeper insights to this, so I decided to focus more on how this would affect industry spaces, as this is most important for artists.
And what additional questions emerged from your research, and why are these questions important?
A lot of additional questions had to surround ownership of these images after being handled through these programs, through the artists who originally made them, through the people who suggested the prompt, to the program itself. This has become a very, very prominent issue. This is why Guadamuz's research was so vital in my presentation, because his research surrounds neural networks and their rights to these images. It raises the questions: who owns these images in the first place? How can we effectively reshape policies and create policies to clarify this issue for us a lot? And my argument did not necessarily hone in on that question, but I still found it to be incredibly important when discussing this as well.